Hi everyone, welcome back for another LinkedIn Live. I'm Julia Demaro, the IBD founder, and today I am here with Bryon, um, and together we are going to talk about positioning yourself as a go-to architect. And just before I go into it, I wanted to thank you guys for tuning in as usual. If you are missing any of the LinkedIn Live, you can find them back in our podcast called the IBD Hub, which is available in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So you will find also this episode with Bryon very soon. So today my guest is Bryon Mc Cartney, the founder of ARC Marketing. ARCHMARK, sorry, my bad. And we are going to discuss positioning yourself as a go-to architect. And hi, Bryon. Welcome onto the platform.
Thank you, Julia. It's really great to be here.
I was wondering if you could introduce yourself a little bit more and explain to us a little bit your experience and your background.
Sure. Yeah. So my background is in branding and marketing. I'm not a trained architect. I call myself an architect geek, an archi-geek. My wife and I met in Chicago, a great city for architecture. And I've always enjoyed architecture. When we lived in Europe, we lived in Switzerland for 12 years, and many of our trips were actually kind of organized around visiting different architectural sites and experiencing architecture. So I'm one of those weird people that really loves architecture, but I'm not an architect. My background is in branding and marketing. I've been involved in branding and marketing for about 30 years. I've worked with some amazing clients in the consumer world, clients like Calvin Klein and General Motors, Lipton Foods, products and brands many of you have heard of. I just think it was just over 5 years ago, we had moved back to the U.S. and we're kind of retooling our business, creating a new business, and after several years in Switzerland. And one of our clients happened to be an architect, and in working with him, we really found that we really enjoyed the synergies, I guess, the similarities in how we think and how we thought and how we worked, kind of similar processes, and it got us to thinking, well, what if we looked into the architecture world and see if there's a need for our services. We did that. We connected with some other groups and kind of really understood that marketing and branding is an area where architects need a lot of help. And so for the past 5 years or so, that's really what we've dedicated ourselves to, is really helping out architecture firms and helping them to be seen as go-to architects to help them communicate their experience, expertise, and talent.
Yeah, it's great. I think what you're doing is really needed. I think that a lot of architects underestimate a little bit sometimes how important the branding is in order to communicate the vision and attract clients. So I'm really happy to have you today for this episode. The first point I wanted to touch upon is that you guys did a research, right? You went through 550 firms. Is that right? Could you explain a little bit what the context is?
Yeah, as I mentioned, when we were working with this first client, we wanted to better understand the architecture industry. How were architects presenting themselves online? How were they communicating about themselves and their firms? And so we started off small. We started with just 20 firms. We were going to an event, and we had a list of firms that would be there. And so we decided to analyze their websites. And we didn't do anything, crazy. We used some off-the-shelf tools that allow you to kind of peek at a website and understand whether or not it's performing well, adhering to some basic best practices. And so that was kind of the start of it. And over a period of about a couple of years, as you mentioned, we looked at over 550 of these firm websites, and that gave us a lot of insight. Yeah, it gave us a lot of insights into how architects are approaching their web presence, their marketing, and their branding as well. Also, how they're talking about themselves, good and bad. So it was really an insightful study, and gave us a lot of information to work with when approaching our clients and trying to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And what have you kind of found out? You found out what the problems were, or?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that we learned, is that, one of the things we saw, as you look at a lot of different examples, you start to see patterns, right? And yeah, some of the problems are that architects tend to talk about themselves more than they talk about the problems they solve. So if you understand that, people are very busy, and when they are searching for a service or a solution, they don't really want to have to decipher if your service is a good fit for them. They want to feel like you are actually, like they tend to gravitate towards the services that are talking directly to them, that are communicating that they understand your problems. And that's a really good sign that it's a good fit. And what we saw is across a lot of these firm websites is that a lot of firms struggle with this kind of communication. They tend to talk about things that are, they're somewhat relevant, but they're what I would call old school credibility factors, things like awards and certifications and, the degrees you have and, all the projects you've done. It's not that this stuff isn't relevant. It's just that when it comes to making a decision about whether or not you're somebody that can actually help me, they need other types of information.
Absolutely. And I think, we've been talking about this also together on Clubhouse and on other platforms, but really the biggest problem originates from the fact that architects are used to pitch to other architects. Yes. And so we're used to use a vocabulary that is very much tailored to the architecture world. And sometimes we're not mindful of the fact that the people that we're trying to reach are clients that are not necessarily as familiar to architecture as we think. And they need to see what do they have to win in it in order to hire an architect. So you're spot on.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. I think it was my friend Nikita Morel. She likes to use this word archibabble. And that's this kind of jargony, industry-centric kind of vocabulary that, your ideal clients are not going to understand when you speak like that. So, what we're looking for is on your website, you shouldn't be using archibabble. You should be using real language, plain language that, if you were meeting a client for the first time and they had no idea what you would do, you wouldn't talk to them in industry jargon and, abbreviations and things like that. You would talk to them and explain to them in real language what you do. And that's what we want to see more of. We want to see architects actually talking to their clients and not each other online.
And you're completely right. And I with my clients, it's the same problem, but for the pitching part, right? So when they pitch to client, they come with their presentation and there is all these references and the awards and everything. But then you're like, the client is like, okay, what do I really have? What is the value that I get from hiring me, right? So it comes from the same perspective.
Yeah, and the thing about the awards, and even, think about it. If you're a busy person and you're going online, you're searching for an architect near me, you're going to get a list of firms in Google search, and you're going to start going to those firms. And at first, you might be looking at the images. You might be saying, "Oh, I like that kitchen," or "I like that office," or I love this, how they did the exterior here. And you may be looking at the pictures initially, but ultimately, to make a decision to choose between one of many choices, you're going to want more information. You're going to want more details. And I think a lot of architects have typically kind of relied on, this concept of like, well, if they like my work, they'll call me. Well, people are changing how they buy services these days. They're looking at your Google reviews. They're looking at, they're looking to kind of figure out who you are. They might be checking out your LinkedIn profile if your name is attached to the firm. And if they're not seeing the things that are helping them to understand that you might be a good fit, and especially on your website, if you're not answering their specific questions or concerns, then it's really easy for them to just go back to Google search and select the next firm and keep on looking.
Absolutely. You're completely right. And that brings me to the next question, actually. Why architecture firms don't get found online and the opportunities are lost?
Yeah, this is a really big issue. I think one of the things that architects need to realize is that there's a lot of competition for the attention of your potential clients. It's not just other architects. It could be design build firms that are out there. Could be real estate developers. There's so many people out there offering other options, and you have to be aware of this. There's services like House and Home Advisor and others like Porch and Thumbtack. I don't know if you have those in Europe, but they're very popular with consumers, and they tease architects with this idea of like, oh, we can get you leads. A lot of times these leads aren't that great, but still, that's taking attention away from what you can offer. So why you're not getting found? Well, there's probably a number of reasons. When we did our study of more than 550 firms, their websites, what we found is many firm websites don't adhere to 4 basic best practices. So number one is your website. More than ever, Google uses this as a ranking factor in search. Your website has to load quickly. That's for 2 reasons. Number one, to provide a good user experience. But typically what we find is that people will abandon a website if it doesn't load within 3 to 5 seconds. So sometimes people are visiting your website, but if it's not loading correctly, they're leaving before it even loads. So they don't even see what you've done, right? Another thing is, and this is less of a factor now than it used to be, mobile responsiveness. More people are looking on tablets and mobile phones to find out information about your firm. So you have to have a good experience on mobile. You have to have a secure website. This is also a ranking factor in Google. And then you also have to, probably the biggest opportunity that I see for architects is SEO, search engine optimization. And I don't want to get too deep into SEO. There's really, it gets very complicated very quickly, but there's basically 3 things that feed into that. Number one, your website has to be coded to be indexed properly by the search engine. So they need to understand how your website is working and what it's about. You need content that is going to show up in search so that people are drawn to your website. So the same things that they're searching about in Google, like, do I need an architect? Is it worth a while having an architect? Is it worth hiring an architect? These kind of questions are really important. And if you can answer them, you're going to draw people to your website. The other thing is having other sites that are linking back to you, like business listings, but also maybe other associations and things like that that are authority, like hold authority with the kind of clients that you want to attract.
Yeah, and I have a question for you that a lot of people are asking at the moment. At the moment, like blogs are the new thing, right? And a lot of website developers or marketing companies encourage architects to write blogs so that they can be more searchable on SEO. Could you explain a little bit why that is important?
Yeah, and I would say this: blogs are not the new thing; they're just maybe coming back into favor.
Sure.
So here's the thing: if you have a social media presence, right, you have to build up an audience, and then you don't actually have access to that audience. The social media company does, but if you want to publish content to them, well, you kind of are at the mercy of the social media platform. So if you're on Facebook and you want to get some information out to your followers, nowadays you really have to just pay for an ad. That's the only way you're going to get your followers to see that. So I think blogging has always kind of had a stable place in the online world because it's a property that you can control. You're not, there's no gatekeeper. And if you can get people to your blog and then get them onto your email list, that's even better, because then you can reach out to them and send them a new blog as you publish it. So blogging really is about sharing your expertise, your experience, and your talent. So what we have found in our study is that a lot of firms tend to focus on what we call news items, right? Hey, we just won an award. Hey, we just got a new project. Hey, we just completed a project. We just hired somebody. So
yeah.
Go ahead, Julie. What?
I have a friend of mine. He always says to his client, when you publish this kind of things, we just simply don't care.
We don't. We don't care. It's like, it's relevant to the people who are involved. Like if you were on that project and whatever, and it's not that it's not relevant at all. It's still worthy of publishing. But if that's all you're going to publish, then what are people going to do? They're just going to say, well, this guy just talks about himself. Yeah. So how do we get our potential clients to see us as experts? We answer their questions. And we have found that there are three key categories of questions that are really helpful to kind of frame your thinking. Number one is what we call the FAQ answers. So these are the questions that your clients might be asking either before they realize they need you or just as they're starting a project. So it might be the things like I mentioned before, like, do I need an architect? Should I talk to a contractor first or an architect first? If you can answer these type of questions, these are the questions they're asking in Google at those early stages of the project. Yeah. A second category is what we call insider insights. So if you're familiar with the client's or the hero's journey methodology of the client journey, your role as the architect is not to be the hero, but to be the guide for the hero, who is your client. You're helping guide them through this process to get this project completed. And so if you can create content that helps them see you as an advocate for them, well, that would be really great, right? It helps them to kind of trust you and see you as a valued resource. Insider insights is content where you're talking about some of the things that might be unfair or frustrating or difficult for the clients that they're not going to know about unless they're involved in the industry, right? This is kind of exposing the truth of the building and design industry and some of the things that can really cause them a lot of frustration and anguish. The the third category we focus on are what are called pain points. And these are things that happen in the course of a project that can cause budget overruns or project delays and things like that. So these are the things that you're going to want to help your clients understand that they need to avoid. And then, of course, as you're talking about that, you're going to position yourself as the person who can kind of help them understand that. But where we see pain points as being really useful is in case studies. So if you have a case study, what we like to do is follow the problem, solution, result model. And so the problem is, what the client wanted, right? The challenge that they presented. The solution is how you help them overcome, mitigate maybe unforeseen challenges along the project. And then the result is obviously the end result that they got. They were able to seat more people in their restaurant and serve more meals every night. They were able to, have the home of their dreams that fulfilled all their life's journeys or whatever, allow them to live the lifestyle that they want, whatever that may be. So those case studies are a really good way to kind of highlight those pain points and show people that you have solutions for them.
Yeah, I love it. I love how you break it down. It makes a lot of sense. Also for me to, break it down, I think it helps a lot because you can make then categories of different themes, of different articles or different publications that you can do. So that's very helpful. Thank you for that. Why is it so important to have clarity about the role of your website, as how it will play in your firm? Does that make sense to you? Should I?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can see the question on the screen. If your website was an employee, what role would it play in your marketing, business development process? How would it help you to help your clients, number one, see you as an option, number two, help them get interested in maybe talking to you, and then number three, maybe helping them to make some decisions about moving forward with you. So this is how we look at, if you're familiar with a what's called a sales funnel, right? We have at the top, we have the awareness, right? They have to know about you. They have to know you exist to consider you as an option. So we have to have awareness. Interest is where they're starting to kind of learn more about you. And at this stage, it's really good to have maybe a downloadable free guide, the 10 things you want to avoid on your, when planning a new custom home or whatever it may be. The decision-making point is where they're starting to look deeper and understand, trying to figure out if you're somebody that can trust them, that they can trust. And this is where those things like case studies play a big role. Now, I'm not saying that this is all linear. Sometimes people will go to your website and they'll just go right for the case studies and say, oh, wow, this guy did a great job in this project. This client was super happy. I want to give them a call and work with them. But what we find is that typically the buying cycle, the stages of buying for an architecture project, let's say, is actually pretty long. So people, when they're initially looking, they're really more looking for inspiration, ideas. They're looking to see maybe what kind of options are available to them. And that's kind of what I call shopping mode. So you have to be visible during that mode to kind of get on the radar. Maybe they'll bookmark you if you're lucky, but ideally what you would want to do is have some sort of free guide for them to download so that they get on your mailing list, and you can then draw them back as they go through those later stages of getting interested in starting the project, making the decision about an architect, and then actually taking action to hire someone. So this is just what we typically, I mean, you're familiar with the sales funnel, and I imagine some of the listeners are too, but this is really what we want to do. We want to create that ability to interact with those potential clients throughout that decision-making process, which might be really short, or it might be, over a couple of years even.
Yeah, unfortunately for architects, it is quite long because I mean,
it can be.
But that's also the power of following up and having them to touch base regularly, right? Because that specific client might not have the budget to build quite yet, but maybe within a year or 2 years, he will be ready and able to actually do it. So, you don't want to, it's the same in business. You don't want to just pitch to a client and then just leave it as it is and then disappear, right? You want to keep following up, and downloading the guide allows you to have the email of the people that can be potentially interested, and then you can send them emails regularly to either refresh their memories or give them free value that keeps them interested, so that once they are ready to buy the service, they have you in mind, as in like, oh yeah, I know this architect that has been doing this, so.
Yeah, I mean, when they're in that shopping mode, it's really easy for them to, maybe they forgot to bookmark your website, or maybe they just, maybe you have one of those, what I call those alphabet soup names, like, ABC Architects, right? And, they're not going to remember that, right? So if you can offer them some of value on your website and get them on that mailing list, you don't have to barrage them with emails every day. You can send them, what we call a drip sequence, a sequence of emails that kind of helps you to understand where they are in their buying cycle, because you can ask them questions in those emails. You can get more information about where they are. And but it also is helping you to kind of stay top of mind, so that they don't forget about you, and that they do remember you when it's time to move on with the project and start to get serious about it.
Yeah, I agree. That brings me to the next question. What are the critical elements and pages of an architectural firm's website? I'm really curious to know what you're going to say.
Well, I think first,
people are being misled on this one. So,
well, there's a lot of different advice out there, and I'll just speak from my own experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a lot of mistake being made by architects. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I don't want to throw architects under the bus too much, but let's just say it like this. They don't teach you this stuff in school, so. And they didn't. I didn't learn this stuff in school. I went to school for graphic design. They never taught us about running your own firm or being an entrepreneur. And so when I came out of school, I went to work for somebody else. I learned from somebody else in the industry. I came up through the industry, and then when I went out on my own, I was kind of like, oh, what am I doing? So let's address the question. So what are the critical elements and pages of an architecture firm websites? Well, here's the thing. I think number one is that if you are not going to do anything else, you need to pay really special attention to your homepage. And, some architects, I've seen architect websites where it's just one long homepage and everything's right there on the page. I've seen others where we've got, all these different sections and things like that. What is the critical information that you need to communicate to your potential clients? How much information do they need? Do they need to know what your contracts look like when they're on your website? Probably not. Just a hint. But I've seen that. I've seen really just a barrage of information on some websites, and then on others, I've seen nothing. So here's what we saw. When we did our study of 550 firm websites, a full 15% of the sites we looked at, believe it or not, on the homepage didn't state that they were architects.
I'm not surprised.
So quite a few also did not have an easy to find phone number or way to contact people. Some firms had you would go to the contact page and it would just, they wouldn't even have an address. It's like I don't know if this firm is in my area or whatever, and I'm not going to go on a rabbit hunt to figure out whether or not you're even my area. I'm just going to leave. Sorry, bye, right? So we need to make the experience of your website as wonderful and pleasant as it would be as if we were working with you in person. This is what we call branding. We reflect the same experience that people are going to have with us in real life through our website, through our other web properties. So for me, the website really needs to quickly answer 3 important questions. Number one, it needs to clearly state what you do and who you do it for. So this is really important. I know a lot of architects get a little itchy when you say you need to niche, but it's really important that your message be aimed at a clear client avatar or persona, right? We have to talk to the people we want to work with. And so what I always ask my clients is, well, think about all the projects you've done. Who was your favorite client, right? What was your favorite project? And that usually is a good place to start when you're thinking about that client avatar. Who did you really love working like if you could duplicate that client and just work with that client, who is that person or what was that project? That's a really good place to start. So getting clear on what you do and who you do it for. So maybe mentioning, if you're a residential architect, say, hey, I do, instead of just saying residential architect, maybe saying I do high-end luxury homes for wealthy individuals. I mean, I'm spitballing here, but I'm for let's say high earning professionals in Florida, right? That would be a very specific message. And what that does is it does 2 things. Number one, it tells the people who you do want to work with that you're the right person for them, but it also tells the people that might just be looking for a bathroom renovation that maybe you're not the person for them, right? So this is something we hear about, these people come to me, I can't help them, right? So this is a good way to kind of weed out the chaff. The second thing your website needs to answer is kind of what makes you unique, special, different, right? So we have a client, Joyce Owens, and she does these beautiful coastal homes on the coast of Florida. And so through working with her, what we discovered is that a lot of her clients, when she gets done with a project, a lot of them will contact her sometimes weeks, but sometimes even years later, and they'll write to her and they'll say, this exceeded all my expectations. This is a pure joy. And because her name is Joyce, we ended up coming up with this slogan, the art of joyful living. So it really kind of helps you understand, like, what do you want? Do you want the art of joyful living? Yes, I want that. That sounds so cool, right? Yeah. The third question we need to answer is, what do we need to do next? And that's where I was talking about, like, the contact information and the phone number and how do I reach you? How do I start is really important, making that crystal clear. And, so that, I think, are the 3 main important things for your homepage. In terms of the pages you want to include on your website, well, you definitely want to include an about page. Believe it or not, folks, a lot of architects will say, well, my portfolio is the most important page on my website. It's not. I'm sorry. We have the data. We look at the analytics. Your website is usually like 4th or 5th on your portfolio is usually 4th or 5th on the list of highest visited pages on your website. Your about page is number 2. And what you want to do on your about page is you do want to make it about you, but you also want to make it about your client. So again, how are you helping them? How are you solving their problem? Portfolio, of course, you want to have examples of your work. We recommend case studies over just having a gallery of images. Ideally, a blog where you can talk about your expertise, experience, and talent, and share those three categories that I mentioned before: the FAQs, the insider insights, and the pain points. That's really good. That's really good. In some cases, if you have a clear process that you take your clients through, or an approach that helps them to understand how you work in the different phases of the project, that is helpful to have as well. If you have a team, you'll want to include your team. And there might be other relevant content that you'll want to include. But I really find that, that homepage is vital to get that right. Having a great about page that isn't just a resume, but is actually talking about what you do, and who you are, but why that's relevant to your ideal clients. Your portfolio, maybe a services or approach or process page, and definitely a blog. Also, you want a contact page, but you can also have a footer that has that information in it. Number one mistake I also see on architecture firm websites is they put the social media stuff in the top right. That's just an invitation to leave your website. I would put the phone number or a contact us button up there instead, and put that social media stuff down in the footer.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, when I did the growth hacking academy in Amsterdam, it's like kind of a a fancy word for digital marketeer anyway.
Yeah.
We were told, the first thing that we were told about website is that people, when they land on your website, they have 5 seconds to understand what your company is about.
Yeah.
So the header, so the very first band of the website needs to have like one sentence that we call like one-liner to really explain what is the problem that you're trying to solve and how do you go about it in order to solve it. So that in 5 seconds, like they just understand it. And what I see in many architects' website is a beautiful picture of a project, or their logo that is huge on the page or something like that. But actually, you have just 5 seconds before they move on to another architect's page, right? So that part is actually super, super important as well.
It really is. It's vital. And I don't know, Julia, have you read Donald Miller's story branding? So you're familiar with that, right? And
exactly, yeah.
And he likes to say, if you confuse, you lose, right? Mm-hmm. And that's his mantra. And but if you're looking for, if architects, if you're listening to this, a great resource is Donald Miller's book. What is it called? Story branding? I believe it's story branding. And it's just a fantastic book, and it helps you to answer those three important questions that I mentioned. Another thing that we see that is really frustrating is when architects have like navigation, and it's not in like plain language. Like, they're using like Greek words and made up words to say this is our work, or this is our portfolio, or whatever. Be clear. People know what an about page is. They know what a portfolio page is. Or a work page. They know what a contact page is. But if you're going to make up kind of strange words to make people like, there's another great book by Steve Krug, Don't Make Me Think, which is about user interface. And if people have to think about it, they're going to probably not go there.
Yeah, indeed. And also, you mentioned something that was very important, the fact that you kind of have to speak to your perfect client. And sometimes people are very scared of being put in a niche, right? And my comment on that is that for instance, we work a lot with values. So what are your values as a business, right? So do you believe in, for instance, I always give the example of sustainability, right? Someone that believes in a better future through sustainability and using recycled materials and so on, that's their value, right? And putting forward these values doesn't necessarily mean you follow into a project category. It's just your vision of things. And it attracts people that believe that sustainability is a good thing, because you don't want to end up spending 5 to 10 years with a client who simply doesn't believe that sustainability is a thing, right? So and that doesn't mean that you just do housing or just offices but it just highlights your values and put it out there, and you will automatically, like you said, attract the right people to you as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of, I think there's a misconception that a niche is you choose a niche, and then that means that you can't work with other clients. We have clients that are not architects. I mean, we exclusively market ourselves to architects, but we've had clients approach us who have said, hey, I love what you're doing for architects, and I want you to do that for us. So, when you're seen as an expert, you are going to be attracting all kinds of opportunities. The important thing is that when you get to a point where you are an expert, usually, or at least seen as the go-to architect, then you're able to say, you know what, that's a great project. I'm sure somebody would be really happy doing that, but it might not be right for me, right? Mm-hmm. You have that choice. Whereas what we see is that a lot of architects, they don't have a choice. They need every project they get, and they can't say no to the projects that they really want to say no to. And so that's really what we're trying to do, is to help architects get out of that, that kind of endless grind of like, I'm just doing this work. I'm just, I have a job. I don't have a business or a firm or even a career. I'm just kind of doing this because I need to.
Yeah. Great. I agree. The number one thing missing from most architecture firm website. Oh, you tapped onto it a little bit with the contact button, but
yeah, I mean, I would say definitely the thing that surprised me the most is how some architecture firm websites seem. There's kind of two things that really kind of surprised me. You guys, all of you architects out there, are designers. I respect that, but sometimes your website isn't a playground for you to experiment with design. So you want to make sure that your website is easy to use, that it's not difficult to figure out. If you are hiding your navigation behind some little, 4x4 pixel on your website that you somehow have to find, then I'm sorry, but that's going to create a very negative experience. And for a lot of people, we're all busy. We don't want to decipher websites. So number one, make it easy to use. Make sure that people are very clear on, what the next steps are, how they get a hold of you, how they can reach you, how they can find you. I get a lot of architects that say, well, nobody ever contacts us on our website. You go to their website and there's a contact us form that is like, 3 pages long, and every little detail about your project. You don't want that. You want to just say, hey, click here, call us, or click here, schedule a 15-minute consultation, whatever it may be, but make it easy and make it simple.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, it's the call to action. So there is not really, you're not really requiring people that are on your website to do anything. So you should encourage them to, either contact you, like you said.
Yeah.
But then if it's contact me for a consultation, then it should be everywhere, actually. Not only on the contact section, or, if you want to encourage them to see a new project because it just came out, or, according to what you're up to, there should be an intention behind going on your website.
Yeah, you just want to make it easy, and you want to make it obvious. Like I said, you don't want to hide your website behind some, I've there was one website I remember seeing, I forget who it was one of the magazines, and they published a list of the best architecture firm websites. And one of them was like, I went to it and I was just like, oh my God, these people have no credibility, because this website was so difficult to use. And it was one of these things where, each of the projects were on the homepage, but they were little icons, and you kind of had to, like, I don't know.
It's still there.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's crazy. It's like, how is this a good website? Maybe back in 2000, I don't know, but not now.
No, but also it's a website. Well, in that case, it's a website made for architects. Not made for architects,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So who's your audience, right? Is it architects? Are you trying to get architects to hire you? Great. Create something that'll excite architects, but if you're trying to get clients, make sure you keep things simple and obvious.
Yeah, I agree. So the last question, what are some key mistakes we see on firm websites?
Yeah, I think we talked about a few of these. We just talked about one with the, not making it obvious what the next steps are, call to action, things like that. The biggest thing I think that we probably see is the homepage, and this is backed up by data, right? So I think it was Hinge Research did a study. They published it in 2019. I think there's an update to it, but I haven't seen the update yet. But they asked AEC AEC buyers, so buyers of AEC services. They asked them, do you typically visit a firm's website before you engage them or before you talk to them? 84% responded yes. So they also asked, do you eliminate firms from consideration before ever talking to them? And 83% said yes. So basically the same amount of people said yes. So why are they eliminating you, right? Now, for some firms, they're going to say, well, they didn't like our qualifications. We did an RFP, whatever, I don't know. Or maybe they talked to somebody else in the industry that said we weren't a good fit for them. There's so many reasons. But if 84% of people are going to your website, then I can guess that a good portion of those people who are eliminating you as an option have gone to your website. So whether you believe it or not, people, no matter what, they are going to your website. And if you're not answering those critical questions that we talked about, those Donald Miller questions that I mentioned, what do you do? Who do you do it for? What makes you different, unique, special? And what do I do next? If you're not answering those questions on your homepage when it loads in that 3 to 5 seconds, then that's a critical mistake. And that's something that you need to correct.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, yeah, it's definitely difficult from an architect perspective. And I think that you're right. Like the branding of a website, even though we're designers ourselves, is something that needs to be at least seen from an outsider perspective, because they might have an eye for, it's like anything. If you're really deep into a project, you tend to really be sentimental about certain details. Whereas like if you have an overview and an outside perspective, you're more able to point out, okay, what can be improved and so on.
Yeah.
But for me, one of the key mistakes that I see firms doing in architecture is that they think, okay, I've done my website 5-10 years ago, and that's because actually it needs to be updated constantly. Also, your vision and your clientele is going to evolve, and the message that you want to tell is going to evolve, and so on. So it can't be just static. as
That's a great point, Julia, that you bring up. And yeah, I agree totally. You can't just, your brochure, your website is not a brochure. And if you have that brochure mentality about your website, then you've already lost the game. You need to keep your website current. That's one of the reasons we highly recommend having a blog, having new and current information published on your website. But it shouldn't stop there. You should be updating your project galleries. You should be updating your team page. As your values change, that needs to be reflected on your website. As you're focused on the types of projects that you want to do changes, that needs to be updated on your website. So if you're just thinking that, hey, I just need to hire a web designer to do my website, and then you're not going to do anything with it for the next 5 years, then don't waste your money. I had a conversation with an architect recently, and he bought his website for like $750 10 years ago. And he has done a few updates since then, but basically it's been the same website for 10 years. Yeah. And so it was one of those things where it's like you buy the website and then you pay for a monthly service that is, and there were some things that he got as a result of that. But unfortunately, he just didn't put it to use. And he was paying $100 every month for, it included an email service, and included the website maintenance and updates to the website. But over 10 years, that's $12,000 plus, well, it's $12,750.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. So if you're gonna buy a website, great. If you're gonna, if you want to get something cheap and you want to get a great, you want to just, kind of like just let it sit there. Just realize that, it's still a cost. You might as well be keeping that up to date. You might as well be refreshing that periodically, because frankly, you don't want people to go to your website and find information that's 10 years old, and that's not going to be a good reflection on your firm.
I completely agree. Okay, well, thank you so much for all this information. I think it was so relevant, and also the way that you broke it down. We keep getting comments, so as we evolve, our information to others has to evolve as well. That's yes. Right, Mary.
Yeah.
We also had Jonas that was saying most of architects do not know how to manage website by themselves. To manage a website, you need a web developer and to pay them for it.
I agree with this, but I also will tell you that these days there are some great solutions out there that you can manage the website yourself, or at least maybe hire a marketer to help you manage it, because it doesn't require web development. There's great tools like Squarespace, and I don't like Wix so much, but there are other solutions, what we call website builder solutions, which actually work really well. Our website happens to be on Squarespace, and I know several architects who like that platform, and it's worked very well for us. So not recommending one over the other. Squarespace is the one I know best. But it's definitely possible to get a website that is a great website that will help you rank well in SEO, and that you don't, the beauty of Squarespace is that you don't really need somebody to maintain the website as much, because there's no plugins to update. There's no software upgrades to worry about. Squarespace takes care of that stuff, and they also protect your website with security protocols and things like that. So it's a pretty good option for, especially for smaller firms.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for all this valuable content. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this comment out of here. I'm trying to multitask, but yeah. Today my strength, but I think it's great that you managed to really break it down to the core things that have to be on there, and why is it important to put attention in the website, and how it can really help you to convert clients and get new projects that are suited to your values and what you're trying to do. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Julia. I really appreciate all that you're doing to help architects, and really appreciate you inviting me to be here today. I'm always happy to talk anytime about anything branding and marketing related to your audience.
And where can people find you, Bryon?
Yeah, so easy thing is to go to our website, archmark.co, not .com, archmark.co, just like on the screen. And if you want to find me on social media, I really prefer to click to connect with people on LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform. So if you go to LinkedIn, you can search for my name just as it is on the screen there, Bryon, Bryon, not Byron, Bryon Mc Cartney. And I'd be happy to, let me know, send me a little note when you connect, and let me know that you were here on the call and you were listening to us. And I will definitely accept your connection, and you can follow the content that we share through LinkedIn. All right.
For sure. And if you want to listen to this episode again, you can follow the IBD Hub on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, so you get a notification every time the episodes are out. And then you can, of course, visit our website, theibdhub.com, for more information if you're starting your own company, or if you want to learn how to get clients online and offline through business development strategies. So thank you, Bryon, once again, and thank you to everyone that connects every week. I really appreciate all of you being here, and I see you very soon, Bryon.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.